back again on stage. I'm David Barrett, as Robert said. If David Kingsley is out there from Intercom, I'm the poor David Barrett. The rich David Barrett is the one who started Intercom. So I'm not jealous or anything. I feel humble and privileged to be here today with my opportunity to tell you a little bit about Welliba and how employee experience is one of the main enablers or disablers of how you're able to attract, retain, develop, and get your workforce to perform in a powerful way. So, over the last 36 hours, many of the discussions we've had have revolved around ultimately things that all constitute part of the interaction between organizations and individuals, which manifest themselves in some way as how experience of work is felt by individuals and how they're able to perform well in their workplace. There are so many aspects to this that it is certainly more than one thing. It is not engagement, it is not sentiment, it is not productivity, it is not just skills, it's not just wellness, it's not just learning, it's not just connectivity, it's many things. One of the things that we have found through the development and implementation of the Welliba platform with all our clients and in research is that a lot of the thinking historically measured things around context and the organization and what it offered and how it interacts with its workforce. This tended to have a high likelihood of leaving out things to do with the self and how the person interacts with context. And through our research and deployment, we've been able to show that in most illustrations of workforce and individuals, about 2/3 of what people's experience is perceived as is caused by their own self, and 1/3 by the context you create. So that's interesting in that if you only focus on the traditional way of how you survey in your organization, you're probably just doing the equivalent of looking for your lost car keys in the car park under the street light, rather than where you actually lost the keys. So I think what we do is we bring together the measurement of self about things like how they feel they can realize potential, how they feel at work, and their personal and psychological resources. And then we bring things together like benefits, career opportunities, social connectivity, opportunities, pay, conditions. Combine those, and that gives us a Welliba index, which we then know from tracking over a point in time and across the time period, how that predicts the likelihood of being retained, the likelihood of quitting, to recommend your company as a place to work, to be sick, to be ill, to be able to develop, grow, and perform. The big reveal today is that Ireland gets a score of 96. And you go, oh yes, so what? That's like turn the stereo up to 11. Okay, now what we can say is that this works like a consumer sentiment index or a purchasing materials index. So the bottom score is 75. The top score is 125. So what we see here is that this is from a big group of ultimately 1,500 people with less than 5 years work experience who we've ran our systems with. And this is the subset from Ireland, which is about 220 people. So we have a score that is a little below expected. Now what we want to do is to see how does this compare to the rest of the world, and then what impact does it have on the likelihood of certain outcomes for this cohort and what causes it. Here you'll see a map where live projects have worked, from Welliba, have worked with this demographic of sub 5 years experience across the globe. We've accidentally occluded New Zealand by our statistics, so apologies to any New Zealanders. There is a country underneath that big blob. And like the modern Eurovision, we've included Australia. And we've also appropriated America into our version of the Eurovision. And what you should be proud of as people who enable and manage talent in Ireland is that comparatively, Ireland, out of these countries who participated, has the highest score on the index, but all of the countries currently are below what would be normal or expected. So the general message is it's challenging, and there's a number of difficult impacts and problems this throws up that are all connected into this tug of war at work and these challenges we all face. But the good thing is that Ireland is in a relatively positive place in this regard. And I suppose as an Irish person, we talked a lot about tribes yesterday and our identity. The main thing is we beat England. Yeah, it's again back to the 1990 World Cup. So what? These numbers and these indexes, there are measure, self and context, predicting experience in the workplace, but what does it mean? Well, what it means is that of this group with less than 5 years work experience, from our validation studies and tracking this across time, 57% of that group have an intention or seriously consider quitting in the next 6 months. 61%, thankfully, would recommend their place of work as somewhere else that someone else should join. 75% felt they were able to grow in some way within their work. And 32% were likely to be off on sick leave for more than 5 days in the next 6 months. Now, where the important takeaway from this comes from is that the ones, though, in the top half of the scores with a higher index versus the bottom were 2 times more likely to stay with you, 1.5 times more likely to recommend, 2 times more able to develop, and 5 times less likely to be absent for 5 days or more in the next 6 months. So this really puts concrete business evidence that affects your people, your organization, your productivity, attached to people experience at work. And I think that what we struggle a lot with is we all talk a lot about with words, we use a lot of language, we talk about like work from anywhere, we talked about culture ads, we have all these narratives that we speak of and all these elements, but it can be quite hard to get them defined into a business metric and a clear way to justify investment in good things into people. We've all spent fortunes over the last 2 or 3 years on experience, wellness, health, trying to do well by our people. But I think as Stephanie was saying from Fenergo earlier today is that now there's a lot of pressure to qualify and quantify and explain what these investments are for and show which priorities deliver the best outcomes. If you're interested in your own sector, so anybody who has one of these Welliba t-shirts who's with us has on their laptop all the diagnostics and dashboards and analytics. So you can dig into your own sector and your own type of demographic in your own country if you want. But a shout out to the people in consulting and telecommunications. Your subset has had the highest scores. Your group would have the least risks and seem to appreciate and have the best positive experience at work. And on the naughty stool, it's the teachers. The teachers and the education. I get to have my revenge on the university and the schools. Education and engineering were challenged. And it's good to see banking, I think, more to the right, because oftentimes they're presented as a challenge place, cultures under pressure. It's good to see that that group seems to be making steps in the right direction. The takeaway from all this, so if there's a so what, or that's great, David, you've shown me loads of information and held a mirror up to a situation, but what does that mean I can do? Now, these things will differ by different organization, but if we were to just take the subset of Irish companies, and we start maybe with the things you should fix, so the things that were the biggest driver of the lack of positive outcomes are connected to the things most negative. Things that were very clearly statistically evident to fix in this cohort was the group is under-provided for in terms of personal resilience. They do not feel robust. Purpose appears to be missing in an endemic level for this group. And that came up a lot yesterday at the base camp about purpose, a reason to work, finding your tribe, having a reason to participate, and connectedness, again, which we know is all a challenge from the work from anywhere, remote, hybrid, back to work. A lot of this generation has never been physically, in a workplace in any substantial way, and the way in which they build bonds and the way they learn. In context, the things to fix were things to do with top-down communication and policies and processes. We talked a lot yesterday about having more a principles, ideology-led way of how to make things better for people was better than having a lot of content being driven downwards, policies and processes being written down and very formalized. This very much reinforces a lot of what the ad hoc commentary we've heard over the last couple of days. So these 5 things in person and context I think are the best place for you to get a return on investment from your efforts at the moment. And there's lots of data to back up that now has proper economic data attached to it, productivity data. It won't say it exactly for your company without your own data in it, but it allows you to have a strong set of evidence to start a dialogue with your CFO, with your COO, with your CHRO. And the stuff that came out is very strongly correlated with good outcomes so far in Ireland, where the people feel they can master things, they can get things done, and people felt relatively calmer or less stressed. And these ones down the right about inclusivity, management, culture, your reputation. You're doing a good job on these with this sub 5 years audience. That's the takeaways. If you want to download the research for this group nationally and globally, you can just scan that code if you want. And anyone who has one of these T-shirts is happy to share more. We're glad to be welcoming a group of you to our lunch later on. We'll discuss anything you want to find out about your own sector. And we hope that you find that in a short form, some way kind of inspiring. It's a bit of evidence to back up what a lot of people maybe think or they have intrinsic or tacit feelings about. But we're here to give you the evidence and to show you maybe where's the best places to take action. Thanks very much, Robert.